next session is something which I want to take off from where Bhuvanesh left on consciousness studies, right? So out-of-body experience is probably science is just catching up with it, and there's been a whole lot of work that has been done before. And I'm really honored and blessed, and BGM is blessed to have Dushyant Sridhar amongst us. And for those of you who know him and have heard him on YouTube, 5 million plus followers and so on, please, Dushyant, on the stage, please. I'll just read a brief about him before we have a chat with him. Dushyant Sridhar is a sought-after speaker in Sanatana Dharma. He's a student of Ahobil Math and has learned various scriptures from revered gurus. He's a regular speaker in Jaya TV, Star TV, Polymer, Podigai, SVBC, Sri Shankara TV. He has rendered over 2,000 discourses in 12 countries. He has a wide spectrum of audience following on YouTube with over 3 million views, a subscriber base of 10,000, and a content that runs for over 500 hours. He organizes religious tours, conceptualizes dance ballets, writes articles for dailies. He's penning the story and dialogues for a movie on Vedanta Deshika, besides donning the role of the protagonist. He is an alumnus of BITS Pilani with over 10 years of corporate and teaching experience. And the thing is, his first discourse started on BITS Pilani campus, for those who don't know. So please welcome, and I would like to have a chat with you, Dushyant. So please. My first question, how has education in BITS Pilani actually shaped your life as an Upanyaskar? Yes, there's lots of stories that we all have from our BITS days, but you have made storytelling a profession itself. So, Upanyaskar, how did that happen?
Namaste to the gathering here. I'm Dushyant Sridhar, 2004, B2, A1, 523. So, this is the best recognition that I have still found till date. So, thanks BITS for having given me this opportunity to even read out this ID. Coming back to the question, first of all, the word that she used may be new to you. Upanyasaha in Sanskrit means one who elucidates or delineates a story. So the ancient art of storytelling is referred to as Upanyasam or Harikatha in the folklore. So this is something which I am into. So she referred to me as an Upanyasakar, the one who does Upanyasams. And the question was, how has BITS shaped? One is the academics that BITS has given. With respect to those new concepts like open book exams and things like that, even today, I am one of those few speakers who has the book in hand but still does not refer to it. So the open book exam has given me that opening. And coming to those little experiences of bargaining with your taxi person from Delhi to Pilani and pulling your huge, I don't know if that tradition still continues, of huge aluminium box that can have, there was one character called Ashtavakra in Mahabharata where he had 8 dents. So this will exceed the Ashtavakra, the aluminium box that we used to have those clothes in, and we had to drag all of it. It was like a big bag of sins that we had to drag through the stairs. But then, all those little experiences did give me that big platform to speak publicly. And with respect to BITS, when she did mention that my first Upanyasam, my lecture was very much in our BITS campus in the lecture theatre complex in Pilani, I should thank actually three people. One, the late Vice Chancellor Venkateshwaran, who called me to his chamber and said, I did hear you recite those hymns in our temple. Why don't you speak? And I thought I can never do this. And it was so different in an engineering college, the VC calling you for any other purpose which is absolutely even mutually exclusive to academics. And the second person is Professor K.E. Raman, who was so very encouraging. And the third, she is not here, but she's a very good friend of Professor Dr. Raghurama's wife, Geeta. Her name was Swarnalatha Rangarajan. and she was a great person who brought me in. So BITS as a place, had it been not BITS, I would have never been an Upanyasaka. So that gave me an exposure to try out a different world. So I'm really thankful.
Thank you very much. I'm sure all the people sitting here are really feeling proud and very, very honored to have you here. My second question is regarding the youth today. See, there's so many choices out there. They have phenomenal, the problem is of plenty, rather than what it was in our days where there was medical, engineering, and probably chartered accountancy. There were just few choices. They first, already before they get to the first year of college, they start imagining, how's my first job going to be, first salary going to be? So you also went into TCS, yeah? Worked for many, many years there. But then recently you have quit that and you are devoted full time to this. So how's life before, during TCS, after TCS? And how should the youth be thinking?
My tenure in BITS was from 2004 to 8. And the 8 to 9, one complete year, I had to do my practice school at Century Rayon, the practice school in Shahad, Bombay. I was a dual degree person, so I had to do it. So what I used to do is I used to take classes in the evenings after my tenure is over. I used to take English in a close-by academy, and one day was left. So I thought I have to do something about it. So I went and spoke to the MD there of Century Rayon, and I said, I'll teach Sanskrit. He said, people here will always seek returns. I said, no sir, I'll teach Sanskrit for free. And I put in a poster saying Sanskrit for free and things like that. Not even a single person turned. So I was absolutely upset, and I went back to him and he said, see where I stand. I told you, without benefits, people will never come. So I had to think, I had to call back the person who taught me. I asked that person, what are the benefits? So then the next day I said, wealth will reign in your house. And you should see 100 people who turned up, and it was covered by Times of India. And well, so that's where it started. Then I worked for a market research firm in Bombay. And then I worked for a pharmaceutical market research firm in Bombay. Then I came to TCS. The shift was very smooth because it happened to be at Shanmukhananda, which is one of the largest auditoriums in Bombay, wherein Chandrasekharan, who is the CEO and MD of TCS, happened to hear me, and he said, why don't you teach me Sanskrit? So every Saturday and Sunday, I used to take a train and then bus, then walk, and then go to his house. And that's when he asked, where are you from and what is that market research and things like that. So I told him, he said, why don't you join my team in helping me with the market research? So TCS was very helpful. I was doing market research for his team as well as traveling extensively for lectures. But there came a point wherein I had to do justice to one of them. And that's when I had to go speak to him, and I had to quit TCS, and that just happened 7 months back. So now there's one Sanskrit movie that's coming where I'm doing the script and dialogues, and I'm assisting the director. And then I conduct heritage tours of ancient places. Then I do my regular lectures in the evenings. I'm writing a book for TVS, the company, on a Sanskrit scholar. And I teach people on WhatsApp, 5,000 people every day. So that's happening. WhatsApp, yeah. Okay. So, every lecture of mine, whichever remote village I go to, I take a video person along, and I ensure it's being recorded and it's uploaded onto the YouTube, because even if I'm not there, the content will still remain. True. So that's one part. So there are various other things happening, but again, the point again we have to come back, or I should be very, very conscious to come back, is had it not been BITS, I wouldn't have thought about anything of this, because I would have been a day scholar, because I don't know about the other campuses, but in Pilani, at least 95% you will have to be a hostelite. Very few, a handful could be day scholars. So staying in a hostel, speaking to people of various backgrounds did help me a lot. Had it been a day college, I couldn't have ventured into something like this. Probably my wife is also, my family is equally very cooperative, because imagine you don't get your salary every month and have to depend on lectures.
That was going to be my question. Yeah, do you miss your CTC?
No, but I've told my wife to retire only when she's 60.
Ah, okay. So she's great. Thank you very much. What other question which always plagues people with a rational thinking and mindset is blind faith, superstitions in religion, cults, spiritual organizations. Whenever you bring in all this, it's a major deterrent to the young and the old. You know, we go in on a particular path in search of finding that peace, and then somehow it just goes wrong somewhere. So coming from an engineering background, now here, what's the balance? And how should we think? And who should we believe, you know?
When we speak as a upanyasakar, a person who narrates the old stories, we do get a lot of statements which first confuse us, even before confusing the audience. For example, people have been telling for long. When they start Ramayana, they'll say the king Dasharatha ruled for 60,000 years. And that's such a high number. Even 150 is okay. Like 60,000 years is so huge a number. And the age-old art tells, don't question them. But then the answer very well lies in our own books, which states, where Kautilya clearly states in Arthashastra, and which has been delineated in a book called Subhashitanivi, where they tell that one proper year or a regime of a king, which is not plagued by scams and scandals, is equivalent to 1,000 years of a normal king. So it's like a scale, what you do in a map. So 60 years could be exaggerated as 60,000 years, because most of our scriptures, when I speak of Sanskrit scriptures, they all come not in the form of prose, not gadyam. They come as poetry, padyam. So there's always a very high element of exaggeration. So when a lady walks, Urvashinam idam karoti, starts Kalidasa, she walked like a swan and things like that, because a poet has the license to describe. But when you look at her, probably you may not even find her walking like a swan. But where does he describe? Because he's a poet. So we need to strip the descriptions of their poetic fantasies and look at the crux. So that way, I try my level best to be as rational as possible. There are certain incidents where you can't. So you leave it to the audience. Whether to believe or not to believe is in their hands. And second thing, when you spoke about the blind faith and superstition, I still remember, I don't know how many of you can echo my thought. During the day of Deepavali, Deepasya Avali iti Deepavali. Avali is a row and Deepam is light. So Deepasya Avalihi iti Deepavali. A row of lights is called Deepavali. So this is the mention that's been made in a 12th century book called Yadavabhyudayam. And whenever there is this festival of Deepavali or Diwali at home, my grandmother would state, take the sparklers and light it, at least for Shastram. Burst these crackers, at least a few of them, because Shastram tells burst. I never used to question my grandmother, because those of you who can understand Tamil, there's one saying, Dillikku Rajanalum Paati Sollai Tattade. Even if you're the king of Delhi, don't even disobey your grandmother's words. So, falling true to what the proverb says, I never used to question her. But the saddest part is when I look back to the scriptures, there's no mention that you'll have to burst crackers. So right from this to the blind faith of walking on fire, because every lecture I go, even to the remotest of the villages, I try my level best to tell people that devotion has to be very personal. Devotion has to be very, 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 very sweet and lovable. You can never walk on fire and say that this is devotion for me. You can never prick your body with 1,000 weapons and say this is devotion to me. So these are all superstitions that have plagued the religion and a large part of the communities. So every lecture I go to, be it to the cities, large to the villages and tier 2 towns, I try. And you should see a lot of these temples have changed. I can mention 2 temples in Tanjavur which have stopped animal sacrifices after the lecture is over. So animal sacrifices, you know, these are all superstitions which don't find any reference in our scriptures. And if an engineering graduate can't change their minds, I'm sure a person with a traditional mindset can never.
Completely agree with you. You just mentioned our first discussion that for you, Upanyas started in BITS Pilani campus. Can you describe that scene? Which bhavan, where, how?
No,
So something
I should
something
talk
more-
about the pre-Upanyasam.
Okay.
The VC called me onto his room and he said, you'll have to deliver a lecture. I was a bit apprehensive, and then he said, you can do it. And I said, sir, how do I inform people? I was not even aware of the modes of advertising then. So he said, no, you type one poster, my secretary will check, then we can take printouts of it. And then he went for 1 week tour or something. Then I went to K.E. Raman sir's chamber and I said, sir, I need to take printout. I had to go draw money for that printout also. So I was worried. So he said, don't worry, you can take 5 printouts in my printer and you go stick. So I had to cycle all the way to all the bhavans and then stick it personally, buy gum and paste it that I'm giving a lecture in lecture theatre and things like that. And surprisingly, 2 of them somebody tore. I don't know what kind of new enemies I had found in bits, but then they tore. It was their contribution for that. So then I went all the way to lecture theatre complex, and a few of my friends, they said, we'll take one photo and we'll write with a chalk piece on the board and all that. I was so surprised. There was a huge crowd of 90.
Wow.
First lecture. And there were professors, and that was even more intriguing because I had N. Rajesh and Vidya Rajesh. They were professors then. They're still professors, one teaching biology. So she was there because the next day I had my tutorial in that session. So I was a bit confused what thought she will have of me. And then professors were seated and students were seated, and students from Ragamalika, the classical music club. So they were seated, and then I had to start my lecture. And it was a lecture in pure Tamil.
Okay.
And I did not know many words. For example, cup. What is the word for cup? Because there are certain words we take for granted in English, in our own mother tongue. Get that iPad. You don't say mere pustak ko leke. You don't say that. Everything, you use English words so generously. So I couldn't spot words. And there should, generally in a traditional lecture, you need to sit on the floor with a wooden plank. There was no wooden plank. So we kind of took 2-3 benches. I was seated somewhere at the top. So yeah, it was like a circus. So then I started the lecture. The flow of thoughts was fine, but finding the right words was tough. So it was a Tanglish lecture, Tamil plus English lecture. That's when the VC called me again. I thought it's a big disaster. He called me to the room the next day and he said, Dushyant, it was good, but I think you need to improve on your Tamil. And then I went to his house a few times and then he helped me, and his wife was so very courteous. Then I gave a series of 11 lectures in Pilani in my 3 years tenure, and it was welcome very well, but not a huge gathering, but it still happened. And again, I don't think any other campus would have supported this. Any other campus. So,
Which bhavan?
I was in Ram Bhavan, I was in Gandhi Bhavan, I was in Krishna Bhavan, I was in Malviya Bhavan. Because the 4th year when we went, Malviya Bhavan was turned into a men's hostel. So we had a good balcony and all that. So that was a luxury then. So, yeah.
And of course, the Saraswati Mandir must have seen a lot of you.
Oh, yeah. We did have sessions from Vivekananda Seva Samiti. Every week we used to have chanting of Vishnu Sahasranamam and things like that. All that helped.
Great. We just went back to Pilani after 25 years for our reunion. Many of my batchmates are right here. Yeah. And we found that, there were lots of peacocks before. And then now, we have just 2 or 3 pairs. And we have started working along with Mrs. Sangeeta Shah and so many others to see if we can do a project to support that. Now, just from an overall perspective, I know it's environment, a lot of different things change around the world and so on. But can you just download some information as to why this could have happened over the period of time, and we can do something to support this, because for us, Pilani and peacocks, they used to wake us up in the morning. So this time when we went, we found that missing. So any input on that front?
Interestingly, there's a verse from this work called as Ritu Samharam. That's a work by Kalidasa. He has given many works. This is a poetry called Ritu Samharam, where he describes various seasons. And in one of those verses he tells, Raver mayukhaihi abhitapito bhrisham vidahyamanaha pathi taptapam subihi avangmuko jihvagatihi phani mayurasya tale nishidati. He tells that when the summer season is filled with scorching rays of sun, so it's that hot, and the bhumi, the ground is that hot, it seems the snakes start crawling and they seek shade under the condensed feathers of the peacock. The peacock turns back, and we have known for long that they are eternal enemies. So the peacock turns, and that's when the snake tells, yes, both of us are eternal enemies, but let's reserve our fight after the summer season. Now I'm tired, so please give me shade. So the very concept of our poetry is to tell that nature is not different from us. We are a part of nature, and we need to respect nature. Probably when you were at BITS campus, did you have so many concrete buildings in BITS as what it is today? Because, well, I went in 2004, that was just 2 years after the library was installed, the lecture theatre complex was installed. And so probably there was much more open space left.
Possibly.
Now that is reduced. So if that is reducing, where will the peacock stay? So that could be just one reason. See, of course, there are bigger reasons like global warming and people shooting at it, poaching and things like that. There could be reasons beyond that. But we see right before our eyes. When I go today, after, I just passed out in 2009. So I could be one of those most...
He's just passed out in 2009.
So I could be one of those most recent graduates here, seated here. So if I go back now, I'll be surprised to see many concrete buildings up. So that's one main reason. And probably one more thing that I would like to mention. Nature in its truest and fullest form is present when there are admirers to it. Probably when we were not having cell phones, your batch would have never had the luxury of cell phones.
Cell phones? Phones?
You had fans and lights?
We had...
Oh, no, that was a luxury.
We had to wait for a phone call in warden's, room. And then we had this huge loudspeaker. So they would call out one person's name and we had to run, and our mom would have already put the phone down because the bill would be too much. And then she would call back again in 2 minutes. So the 2 minutes, like we were 3 of us waiting. So it was bad.
So that way we were in I was in a
You were a
super
cell phone?
developed Pilani.
Okay.
So we had ATM and cell phone and all that.
Okay,
What has happened is with a lot of technology that's been coming in, and we are either victims to it or we use it. It's like a devil that you can never get out of. It's an angelic demon. So you need to love, you need to hate. So we are a part of WhatsApp, we are a part of Twitter, we are a part of Facebook, we are a part of LinkedIn, we are a part of SoundCloud, so many other things. So there's very little time for us to even admire nature. So probably when nature finds that there are no admirers, it takes or it withdraws whatever it gives us to enjoy. So that's another way to look at it. So whenever I do conduct heritage tours, so when I take people around to temples, I tell them, don't list out temples for a day that have to complete 8 temples. Go to a temple, look at the architecture and see what's different in it from others. So my point is, when you go to a place, enjoy that place. When you go to a place, admire that place. Take time. And it's not about saying that I've visited so many places, but what have you done? So admiring is more important than putting a tick mark onto your huge list of places that you visited.
The IITians have a word for this. It's called pateling. So when you go there and then take a photo in front of any tourist spot, so they call it pateling. So similarly, we don't want to tick out. I think we had a 20-25 minute. I would just like to open out to a couple of questions from the audience, if any, if you're fine with that. And
Sure.
yeah. So if anybody would like to ask any question of Dushyant, we have time and space for that. Yeah. Yeah, we have a hand at the back.
Hi, Uday, 1987 batch.
Hi, Uday.
So there was a slide in the previous session which talked about, the mind and the soul or mind cannot be disassociated with the body, and there's proof for that. What's your take on that? Is there any? I'm sure there are scriptural references to why a soul kind of, takes rebirth and stuff like that, right? So what's your take on that?
See,
Evidence.
our entire set of scriptures, be it the first three parts of Vedam, which is called Brahmanam, Aranyakam and Samhita, or the last part, the Antima Bhagam, which is called Vedanta or Upanishad, they form the crux. And the offshoots remain the epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, and then the Puranas and Dharmashastram and Samhitas. So all of them speak in unison when they say that the body and the soul are different. The soul is eternal, the body is perishable, but the soul can get into the operative mode only when it's inside the body. And for that soul to operate, it needs an attributive knowledge called Dharma Bhuta Jnanam, which incidentally is being mentioned by Al-Biruni, one great traveler from the Arab world who came down to India 1,000 years back. In his Indica, he mentions that when most nations are not formed, people seated on the streets of India are discussing about knowledge and attributive knowledge. He praises India that way. So that way, if you see, the soul and the body are treated different. Soul is eternal, the body is perishable. But when it comes to the slides that the previous speaker showed and spoke about, the religion is very clear that you can know all of this, but it takes a lot of time to realize this. There's a difference between knowing and realizing. I'm still speaking about the body and the soul. I know of it, I'm speaking of it, but I haven't realized it as yet. Have I realized that, probably I wouldn't be even speaking now. So that's the point where our scriptures take. Incidentally, when we speakers kind of ridicule English for its very malfunctioning grammar, realizing is a beautiful word in English, which I cannot find an equivalent word in any other language. Probably Sanskrit says sakshatkaram. But until we realize and just know of it, it's a useless tinsel. And all these steps of meditation, visiting temples and things like that, reading, is just out of the belief that at least one step, an iota, we will get towards that realizing. So I hope I've answered your question. Yeah, thank you.
Professor Saha wants to ask a question right up front, please. Small
I'm Arun
question.
Shaha. I have no question on your Upanyash, Karam, etc. or use of technology rather. You mentioned in while speaking that you are teaching Sanskrit 5,000 students through WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Is it simultaneous and how you are teaching it? Because we cry, 150 students in a class, we say, oh, it is a large number of students, large number of students. edX, we know, we are several thousand. How you teach it and is it simultaneous?
What I do is, I record 4-minute audios much in advance. Today morning I could record over 20 audios and I sent it to my admin team. So they have volunteers from 5 continents. And each of them maintain those groups and they send it. So you cannot call it interactive. I wouldn't say it's interactive. If they have doubts, they cannot question me back or they cannot ask immediately. But what I do is, most of them I tell them, you follow me on Facebook. So if my friends list is exhausted, they can follow me. And they can send messages to me. And if at the end of the month, I see there are about 200, 300 questions, some very, very repetitive. So I shortlist those questions and send those answers to them over mail. So I cannot call it completely interactive. It's one-sided. But probably this is the best thing that I could do. Because people live in various time zones, people have their own work schedules and things like that. So it's very tough for me to manage that way. But whatever little I could, I've done. If there are better tools, I'll surely take up to them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One youngster, two. One in the front and one in the back. Very quick, please, short. Because we need to head to the next panel.
I'll also
which
keep
is
my answers short.
Yes.
I'm Sasi Desai from 1956 batch. I just want to know, how did you acquire mastery in Sanskrit language, although you are a Tamilian? Second question is, how do you see the future of Sanskrit language?
Okay, the question was very interesting when you said, although a Tamilian, you could acquire, because that's a very interesting question. I'll tell you why. Because of the languages that you see in India, most of them have a very, very close association with Sanskrit. You take the ancient form of Telugu, if you take the ancient art of Kannada, or even Malayalam, or the North languages, of course, Marathi, Gujarati, and Marwari, and Hindi, and Punjabi, they have a very close association with Sanskrit, one, in terms of words, the vocabulary, or even in terms of script. Tamil is one of those languages which is not that close to Sanskrit. So your question was right in the sense that for a person who's speaking Tamil to acquire some kind of a proficiency in Sanskrit is tough, yes. But what happens is we have this word called Tambram. So Tambrams speak not exactly Tamil. They speak Sanskritized Tamil. So if there are 10 words in my sentence, a pure Tamilian will speak 10 words of Tamil. Whereas a Tambram will speak 6 words in Sanskrit and 4 words in Tamil. He will say, Amma, get me Tirtham. Tirtham is Sanskrit. So if you extract those Sanskrit words, they have helped me. About the proficiency, I wouldn't say I'm proficient at all. But from the age of 5, my mother is a teacher, a school teacher, so she put me on to Sanskrit classes. Either she wanted me to learn Sanskrit or she could not stand me at home. So she found an opportunity to send me out. So I had the opportunity to learn Sanskrit and Tamil hymns from the age of 5 till 15. Then came the 10th, 11th and 12th, and then came the usual dialogue, we are middle class, you have to go to a good college, stop all this and go and things like that. Okay, somehow I got into BITS. And after I came to BITS, every time I used to go for the vacation, I used to learn. And then after I was out of BITS, I learned for 5 years under 5 gurus. Each of them in very senior positions. One was a vice president in Reliance, one was a CEO of GEC Housing Finance. So they taught me Sri Bhashyam, Gita Bhashyam, Shatadushani, Rahasyatrayasaram, Bhagavad Vishayam and so on. So every Saturday, Sunday I had to spend 6 hours learning them and still learning. So that has helped me because to get onto the stage and match with a traditional scholar, I need to work 4 times. He has been doing it from this age of 5, whereas I've been learning the Ohm's law and Boyle's law and Bernoulli's theorem. And is Professor Jisoo here? So
Actually, we missed him.
He taught me quantum chemistry.
Oh, is it?
And oh my goodness, don't even ask him of what experience he had of teaching me.
Video, definitely.
So quantum chemistry and the Schrodinger's equation and things like that. Now, for me to suddenly go onto the stage and speak about Vikramurvashiyam and Malavikagnimitram and Ritu Samharam, it took a lot of time for me to convince the traditional scholars that a Bitsian can also do it.
Okay, last one by the youngster at the back. Yeah, do you still want to ask? It's okay? Thank you, thank you. Yep. No, same, one question? Oh, you had the same question. That definitely signifies that it's the end of the show, right?
Thanks a lot, thanks a lot. Tomorrow we have another session. I'll be a part of it. And there's one small brochure that will be circulated. Yes. We are conducting a heritage tour. The lectures are going to be in English. I'll be taking around to the ancient temples. So that's in a very...
So this is the way one can, actually get to know more about him and so on. So quite a lot of YouTube videos that are there online. Just Google Dushyant Sridhar and you will get...
You can bring your children as well. And it'll be very interesting to have them, the young minds there. And I'll be explaining the architecture of those temples and there'll be lectures in the evening and it's in a heritage hotel in Tanjavur of Tamil Nadu. It's a very beautiful ancient palace which has been converted, so you can be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you.